We're going to continue with our discussion of the guidelines, this time B4.1a through B4.8, and we'll also be building ICD-10 PCS codes while we're learning about the guidelines. B4 is about body part guidelines. One of the characters in a complete PCS code is the body part. What these guidelines attempt to do is to clear up any confusion when there is not a body part value in the tables that you're looking at in the PCS. B4.1a says if a procedure is performed on a portion of a body part, and that portion of a body part does not have a separate body part value, you're going to code the body part value that corresponds to the whole body part. Instead of the portion, you're looking at the whole body part. So the example that's given is a procedure is performed on the alveolar process of the mandible. The mandible is the bone in the lower jaw. You can see in the diagram here, this is your mandible here, and the alveolar process is labeled right here. So you're going to code the mandible as your body part because there is no body part value for the alveolar process. Guideline B4.1b is the use of the prefix Peri, P-E-R-I. If that prefix is combined with a body part to identify the site of the procedure and the site is not further specified, then the procedure is coded to the body part named. This guideline applies only when a more specific body part value is not available. And the example given there is perirenal fat. There is no body part value in the PCS tables for perirenal. So you're going to code to renal, which is kidney. That's going to be your body part. I found this an interesting image as well. I've never heard the term pararenal fat, but you can see here the definitions are given for how that would be defined. We learn so much by going to Google Images and looking at either anatomy or procedures. I encourage you to do that. I never get tired of doing that because there's always something on there I don't know, so I just keep learning. One exception to this guideline is if the documentation is giving you more information than what the doctor is stating. For example, if the doctor is dictating his operative report and he says resection of the periurethral area, open approach. But as you read that operative report, you see what he's really operating on is the vulvar tissue on the woman's body, not the periurethral area. So because there is a body part value for that very specific vulvar tissue or vulva, that's what you're going to code. And I have there our little table showing the 7 characters and the PCS code that would describe that procedure. Guideline B4.c is about tubular body parts. Tubular body parts are things like all your blood vessels, your GI system is a tubular body part, some of your tubes coming off of your kidneys, your different organs. There's a lot of tubes in the human body. So this guideline says if a procedure is performed on a continuous section of a tubular body part, you're going to code the body part value that corresponds to the furthest from the point of entry. So the example is given here. You've got a procedure being done on a continuous section of artery, from the right femoral artery where the procedure begins all the way to the right external iliac artery. The point of entry was in the right femoral artery, so the furthest anatomical site is going to be the right external iliac. So that's the artery we're going to be using as our body part. B4.2 talks about branches of body parts. This is especially true with nerves. Where a specific branch of a body part does not have its own body part value in PCS, body part is typically coded to the closest proximal branch that has a specific body part value. In the cardiovascular body systems, if a general body part is available in the correct root operation table, and coding to a proximal branch would require assigning a code to a different body system, then you're going to code using a general body part value. These guidelines make a lot more sense once you've been coding more. Hang with me here while we just keep learning these guidelines and becoming more familiar with our code book. The example that's given is an open repair of the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve. You see there about midway down in red it says trigeminal nerve, and then just above it in orange it says maxillary branch. There is no PCS body part value for the maxillary branch, just for the trigeminal. Here's a screenshot of the central nervous system and cranial nerves table for repair. To describe this procedure, we've chosen the trigeminal nerve as our body part, repair as our root operation. And their approach is open. It says in our description here, open repair. So that's how we know that's our approach. The next guideline, B4.3, has to do with bilateral body part values. There are some body parts in the PCS classification that have a term bilateral. They will have the right fallopian tube, the left fallopian tube, and bilateral fallopian tubes. So you're only going to need one code if the procedure is being done on both sides of the body, in this case the fallopian tubes. The second diagram is talking about knee replacements. There is no bilateral knee joint body part value. If a patient is having a knee replacement on both the right and the left leg, you're going to need two codes because the body part values have different characters. Just to point out something while I have this here, this diagram, a total knee replacement is when all three of these components are being replaced. I've had a total knee, and I know this from experience. The patella is your knee cap, the femoral component, this bone going up here, and the tibial component, this bone coming down here. All three of those sections of the joint are replaced in a total joint replacement. If a patient is only having one or two of these replaced, then it's a partial knee replacement. So back to the bilateral body part values. The example that I used, if you have a procedure being done on bilateral fallopian tubes, percutaneous endoscopic approach, then you're going to have this is going to be your PCS code. If you're having bilateral knee replacements, there are going to be two codes because the knee joint right is body part value C, knee joint left is body part value D. Otherwise, the codes are the same except for that body part value. More and more people are having both knees done at the same time, so it would not be unusual for you to code both of these when someone's having a bilateral total knee. The next guideline has to do with coronary arteries, guideline B4.4. The coronary arteries are classified as a single body part that is further specified by the number of arteries treated. So one procedure code that specifies multiple arteries is used when the same procedure is performed, including the same device and the same qualifier values. If your operative report describes procedures where some arteries have one device or qualifier and another artery has something different, then you're going to need two different codes. The example that's given here is angioplasty of two distinct coronary arteries with placement of two stents, and both of those have the same device and the same qualifier. Because that's all the same, you only need one code to describe angioplasty of those two arteries. I have a little note there. The intent of the procedure is to dilate the vessels by inserting that stent, so the root operation is dilation. With PCS, you're going to always be asking yourself, what is the intent of this procedure? What is the physician trying to do or the surgeon trying to do? Guideline B4.5, procedures performed on tendons, ligaments, bursae, and fascia supporting a joint are coded to the body part in the respective body system that is the focus of the procedure. Procedures performed on joint structures themselves are coded to the body part in the joint body system. So just remember, the supporting structures around the joint are going to be coded tendons, ligaments, bursae, and fascia. If a procedure is being done on the joint itself, that is coded to the joint body system. So the example that's given is repair of the anterior cruciate ligament of the left knee. And I have here a screenshot of the code book and the PCS code there. But you may notice when you first look at the body part here, there is no body part value for the anterior cruciate ligament. If you read under, you see anterior cruciate ligament is listed. Another way, if you think of it, is to look at the body part key. I have it here, a screenshot. This is in the back of the Optum code book, and I think most code books have body part keys. And you can look up the term, the anterior cruciate ligament, or ACL, here at the very top on the right-hand column, and it tells you you're going to use the body part value, knee, bursa, and ligament, either right or left, depending on which leg you're working on. Here I have a screenshot of the PCS code book and the PCS code for repair of the anterior cruciate ligament of the left knee. Skin, subcutaneous tissue, and fascia overlying a joint. If a procedure is performed on the skin, subcutaneous tissue, or fascia overlying a joint, the procedure is coded to the following body part. These are just rules that we have to remember, and you can remember that they're either in your guidelines here, or you can write them in your code book, as you can see on the screenshot there from my code book, where I have actually written them down at the bottom there, of how they code shoulder codes to upper arm, elbow codes to lower arm. Because when you look at the body part values, shoulder, elbow, wrist, they're not there. So you have to actually use the body part value that the guideline is telling you to use. If a body system does not contain a separate body part value for fingers, procedures performed on the fingers are coded to the body part value for the hand. And if the procedures are on the toes, the procedures performed on the toes are coded to the body part value for the foot. And you see here where I have written finger muscle beside the hand muscles there, right and left. And here's a picture of repair from my code book. And you can see the hand muscle there in the middle column. That's where you would be coding if you were, that's the body part value you would be choosing if you were coding finger muscles. All the writing there on that page has nothing to do with fingers and toes. I'm just giving you shots of my code book. This particular page has to do with repair of perineal tears during childbirth. There are several degree tears, and this is just a note I have for myself. Depending on what the operative report is telling me has been torn, it's going to dictate how I'm going to code it. So that's all that is. Those little notes to myself have nothing to do with fingers and toes, but are just applicable to this particular page in the PCS code. Upper and lower intestinal tract, guideline B4.8, tells us how this breaks out. The upper intestinal tract and the lower intestinal tract, there are certain parts of the GI system that go into those terms, and this is provided as an option for only certain root operations: change, inspection, removal, and revision. Also be aware that there is an illustration in your code book. I have Optum, so this is the illustration out of my code book, but all of you have illustrations, I'm sure, of how that works. So here's an example, change of device in the jejunum, and you can see in the diagram there, the jejunum is part of the lower intestinal tract. So that's how you know that's going to be your body part. And here's the procedure, change of device in the jejunum. I show you the change root operation table there in the GI system, and your PCS code is given on the right. That concludes our guidelines related to body part. Stay tuned for part 4.